You're about to do something in your next argument that'll make everything worse, and you won't even realize it until it's far too late. But before we get into that, I want you to think back to the last argument you had. Can you remember what it was about? If you're not sure what I mean by this, let me explain. When the world's leading couples researcher, Dr. John Gottman, was asked what the number one thing couples fight about, this was his answer.
And the real answer is absolutely nothing.
It sounds strange at first, but he's right. On the surface, it looks like you're arguing about one thing, but it's almost never the real issue. I want you to picture conflict like an iceberg. What you're fighting about in the moment, the chores, the forgotten plans, that's just the 10% you see above the water. The real issue, the giant 90% lurking underneath, is a whole mess of unmet emotional needs. And the sad reality is, most of us spend all of our time arguing about that top 10%, wondering why things never seem to improve. But how can you expect to fix a problem you're not actually talking about? Research by Dr. John Gottman found 4 communication patterns so destructive he called them the 4 Horsemen of the apocalypse. And these patterns are so common, you're probably doing them in every argument without even realizing. The first and most common of the 4 Horsemen is criticism. To be clear, criticism isn't the same thing as having a complaint. A complaint is a specific observation. It sounds something like this.
Hey, I noticed the dishes are still in the sink. When are you planning to have these done?
A criticism, on the other hand, is a direct attack on the other person's character and sounds more like this.
Are you seriously this lazy? You never clean up after yourself.
See the difference? The first is about a situation. The second is a personal attack. And when you do that, you're not asking for help. You're asking for a fight, because it leaves the other person with one of 2 choices. Take the insult or defend yourself. So I hear you asking, how do we communicate what's bothering us without being critical? One of the best ways is using I statements. Now, this is the most misunderstood tool in the book. So let me show you the correct and very common incorrect way to use these in conversation. A proper I statement has a simple structure. You share your feelings, the specific situation that triggered it, and the need that you have. So it sounds something like this.
Hey, listen. I feel overwhelmed when I see the dishes from this morning still in the sink because it makes me feel like I'm doing this alone. It would mean a lot to me if they were done before I get home.
Think of it like pointing a flashlight. You can shine it directly in someone's eyes, which is going to make them squint and turn away, or you can shine it on the path ahead, so you can both see where you're going. Now let's get one thing straight. Saying, I feel like you're not listening to me, is just a criticism disguised as a feeling. It still puts the other person on the defensive. Using I statements does 2 things. It reduces the chances that the other person puts up their walls, and it invites them to see your side, to feel empathy. You're no longer attacking them, you're revealing a vulnerable part of yourself. And most of the time, that's enough to change how they'll react. Because in most healthy relationships, when you give the other person an opportunity to help you, they typically will. Now, a word of caution. This is going to feel very unnatural. So make sure to practice using I statements outside of your big arguments. This brings us to the second horseman Dr. Gottman identified, defensiveness. Now, this is almost always a knee-jerk reaction to criticism. Defensiveness is really just a way of saying, I'm not the problem. So for example, if your partner says, you forgot to take out the trash again, a defensive response looks like this.
You always do this. You say you'll take out the trash and then you just forget. It's like you don't even listen to me.
I just walked in the door. Why do you always have to nag me the second I step inside?
Now, your partner might not always use perfect I statements. In fact, they probably won't. They might come in hot with criticism. And that's when defensiveness wants to take over the most. But in that moment, you have a choice. You can either defend yourself or you can get curious. Here's what I mean by that. When they say something like, you never help around here, your job isn't to prove them wrong. Your job is to help them shine the light out of your eyes and onto the real problem. Instead of saying, that's not fair, I helped yesterday, try, it sounds like you're really overwhelmed right now. What would help you feel more supported? This approach, in contrast to defensiveness, invites the other person to clarify their underlying needs and brings the conversation back on the right track. When you approach your partner with curiosity instead of defensiveness, you're telling them your feelings matter. even if your delivery isn't perfect. This de-escalates the tension and creates that emotional safety you both need to fix the problem as a team. When you defend, you stop listening. It's impossible to do both at once. Now let's talk about the horseman that does more damage than criticism or defensiveness: contempt. Contempt is a huge leap past criticism. It's acting with superiority. It's mockery, sarcasm, eye-rolling, name-calling, and hostile humor. Contempt has a very clear message: I'm better than you. And it's absolute poison to a relationship. In all of his research, Dr. Gottman found that contempt was the single biggest predictor of relationship failure. When contempt shows up, the goal is no longer to solve a problem. It's to cause the other person emotional pain. It eats away at the admiration and respect that are the foundation of any healthy relationship. But you can't remove contempt just by telling yourself to stop doing it. What you can do, though, is crowd it out by deliberately building what Gottman calls your relationship's emotional bank account. These are a steady stream of small, positive moments that outweigh the negative ones. This means intentionally scanning your environment for things to praise and appreciate about the other person. And then this is the important part: you say them out loud. A simple, "Hey, thanks for making that coffee this morning," or "I really appreciate how hard you work," acts like an emotional cushion. It's a deposit of positive energy in the relationship's bank account. When you engage in these small positive behaviors, both inside and outside of conflict, you're actively maintaining the emotional safety that prevents contempt from taking root in the first place. Sometimes, though, despite your best efforts, the conversation still collapses. That's when the final horseman appears: stonewalling. Stonewalling is when one person just completely withdraws. They shut down, stop responding, and become a metaphorical stone wall. Now, to the person on the receiving end, it can feel like a deliberate punishing act, but often it's actually a response to feeling completely physiologically overwhelmed. Your body goes into fight, flight, or freeze. Your ability to think rationally, listen, and empathize essentially disappears. Stonewalling is a desperate attempt to protect yourself from that awful, overwhelming feeling. The problem, however, is it leaves the other person feeling abandoned and rejected. This usually makes them ramp up to try and get any response. The first thing you need to focus on is noticing the signs of flooding in yourself. Whether that's a racing heart, tense muscles, maybe you're holding your breath. The moment you feel it, the most powerful thing you can do is stop the conversation. But, and this is crucial, you have to set a time to come back. You can say something like, "I'm feeling totally overwhelmed right now. I need to take a break so I can calm down. But I promise we'll come back to this. Can we pause for 10 minutes? During that break, do something that genuinely helps you regulate, like listening to music or stepping outside for a walk. Whatever you do, don't sit there rehearsing your arguments, because all that does is keeps the stress alive. Now, once you've both calmed down and returned to the conversation, you'll notice the tone shift almost immediately. But if that still isn't enough to reset, and every word you say seems to make things worse, in those moments it helps to change how you communicate. That's when writing can be a helpful reset button. Writing slows the mind, removes the immediate pressure to react, helps you choose your words more carefully, and gives your brain space to catch up with your emotions. And because there's a record, writing quietly discourages harshness. But a quick caution here: tone can get lost on paper, so agree to interpret each other charitably beforehand. Hopefully by now you're starting to see conflict not as a threat to your relationship, but as an opportunity to connect and learn more about each other. Because when you make those small shifts, you create space for something new to happen. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing or sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, this isn't where the conversation ends, it's where it begins.